Hello, I'm David Ray, and in this Revizto training session we'll be focusing on the Vectorworks plugin for Revizto. So what I'll do is start here in Vectorworks. I do want to briefly point out that upon downloading Revizto in the installation, the Vectorworks plugin will be automatically installed. There is a good way to check that. I think the way to remedy that if it doesn't come over properly would be to uninstall and reinstall Revizto. But what I'll do later in this session is just talk briefly about how to double check that before you go through a whole uninstall, reinstall. So what I want to do in Vectorworks, as I mentioned, upon downloading Revizto, the plugin does come in. However, there is some customization techniques and things I want to point out just to get the plugin activated. So here in Vectorworks, if I go up to Tools at the top toolbar, navigate down to Workspaces, then Workspaces again, here you'll have a dialog that shows you, which workspace you're working off of, and then an option to edit. So once I choose to edit that workspace, you'll notice I have two prompts here. So I have a Commands, Options, and then Menus. And so what I did here is I put the Revizto export within its own menu, just so I can easily get to it within the user interface, right? But for example, if I wanted to put all of these tools within one of these existing folders, I could also do so. So maybe under File, for example. So if I come back over here to Commands, navigate down to where my Revizto tools are, I could simply drag and drop this Revizto menu under my File menu as well. So you'll notice it gives me a line of where that's going to be dropped in. But what I recommend is setting up its own, your own Revizto tab, just so you can quickly, easily identify it and get to it in the Vectorworks interface. So to do so, under the commands here, I can hit New Menu. I can drag that over to my Menus file and select where I want that to show up. So maybe I want this to go between View and Modify. So from there, it's going to show without a drop-down. It's just going to be its own blank menu. I can also double-click here and rename. So for example, if I want to give this an official title of Revizto Export, and then again back here in Commands, what I would do is navigate down to the Revizto plugin, open this up, and then I can simply drag and drop this Revizto menu into the new menu I've just created. And from there, you'll notice I have the drop down just like the one I previously created, and that's going to live on my menu. So I'm not going to want that in two locations, just to clog things up. So what I can do there, if I want to reformat some things, highlight that, hit delete, and go ahead and get that out of there. From there, you'll hit OK, and it will take do a couple things here, kind of reformat itself. And all those edits I just made under Tools and Workspaces, you'll notice now I have Revizto up here in the top toolbar. So from there, I have my drop-down. I'll have my Revizto Export, Revizto Issue Tracker that allows the Vectorworks model to talk back and forth with the Revizto model. The Revizto New Issue creation here, so we can create new issues within sheets in Vectorworks or from the model. I do want to point out briefly the Revizto Export menu. So if I dive in here, just a brief overview. Here we can select the 3D model and any of the views I might have in the project. We can also choose to export sheets out or not. right? So we can untoggle the export sheets and only export a 3D model, and vice versa. If we want to leave the 3D model behind, only export out the sheets, that's an option. But from there, we will run the typical Revizto export dialog here. As it relates to positioning, I recommend, if you're coordinating other models, using base point to base point. And we will have a video referencing best practices on how to coordinate maybe different models versus different platforms, and some best practices on positioning. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this training session, Revizto does automatically install this upon downloading and installation of the Revizto application. However, there is a good way to check that. If, for example, you cannot find it within Vectorworks. So what you can do is go into your C drive, for example. From there, you'll want to go to users, username. You'll want to find your app data. This may be a hidden folder. From there, you'll want to choose roaming. Navigate down to Nemachek, Vectorworks. Select which version you're working off of. Then here in plugins, you'll notice the Revizto folder. And that way you can just double check. Maybe it made it in, maybe it didn't, before you have to go through and uninstall and reinstall Revizto.